All right, let's get right into this one. It's a classic story about a truly great king and one single fateful tragic error. This is a tale about how even the most virtuous leader can be brought down by a single moment of weakness.
So our story actually kicks off not with the king himself, but with his son, King Janamejaya. He's sitting in his royal court, and you can tell he's just haunted by the mystery surrounding his father's death. So he turns to his ministers with a pretty simple but heavy demand. He wants the truth. And with those words, a king demands the past be brought into the light. He's not just asking for the basic facts here. He wants the full story, the unvarnished truth of how his great father met his end. And his ministers, well, they're about to give it to him.
But before we can really wrap our heads around the tragedy, we have to understand the man at the center of it all. Who exactly was King Parikshit? Well, according to his own ministers, he was nothing short of the perfect ruler.
I mean, just look at this list. The ministers paint a picture of a flawless leader. They call him an embodiment of dharma, basically virtue itself. He was equal-minded towards everyone, protecting rich and poor alike. The source even says, no one disliked Parikshit, and he dislikes no one. And get this, passions under control. You're going to want to remember that little detail, because wow, does it become tragically ironic.
Even his name carried this incredible weight of destiny. Parikshit, the tested one. Why? Because he literally faced a trial of life and death before he was even born, surviving when his entire race was almost wiped out. His whole life, it seems, was a testament to his strength. And he reigned for 60 years. 60! That is a long and glorious rule. He was this beacon of justice for his people. So you can imagine, when he finally died, every single one of his subjects mourned him. A perfect king, a perfect reign. So, here's the big question, right? How does a man like this meet a tragic end? The answer doesn't begin in the palace. It begins deep in the forest, with one of the king's few personal passions.
See, for all his virtues, Parikshit had this one indulgence: hunting. The source tells us he became addicted to it, a lot like his famous ancestor Pandu. He'd often just hand over the keys to the kingdom to his ministers and ride off into the forest, bow in hand.
So on this one fateful day, a chain of events starts to unfold. He shoots a deer, but it doesn't go down. He pursues it, alone, deeper and deeper into the wilderness. And you have to remember, he's 60 years old now. He's getting exhausted, he's hungry, he's frustrated. And it's in this state, worn down and tired, that he stumbles upon a solitary, meditating sage.
Okay, so this is it. This is the moment the whole story pivots on. A simple misunderstanding that is about to spiral into an absolute catastrophe.
Now, what the king didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that this sage was observing a mowna vrata. That's a sacred and totally unbreakable vow of complete silence. He was deep in meditation, completely cut off from the world around him.
You can just picture the scene. The king, tired and thirsty, walks up to the sage and asks, "Have you seen the deer?" "Nothing." He asks again and again. But the sage just sits there, completely still, described as being like a block of wood. The king's desperation is met with this absolute, unmovable wall of silence.
And here, for the first time in our story, the perfect king's composure just cracks. He's overcome with hunger, fatigue, and frustration. That famous self-control completely vanishes, and his temper just flares.
He sees a dead snake lying there on the forest floor. And in a moment of pure impulsive anger, he does something completely out of character, something unthinkable for a man known for his virtue and his respect for all living things.
He uses the tip of his bow to lift the dead serpent and drapes it over the shoulders of the silent meditating sage. It's a profound act of mockery and disrespect. And this single impulsive act of insult, well, it would seal his fate.
But what's truly incredible is the sage's reaction, or I should say his lack of one. Even with a dead animal hanging around his neck, he remains perfectly still. The source says, no hint of anger touched his pure and tranquil heart. He's completely unmoved, lost in his meditation, while the king, his rage now spent, just turns and walks away.
The king left that forest, but the consequences of his actions were just beginning to ripple outwards. And this brings us to the central question of the whole story. What is the price of a single mistake? For a man so great, so beloved, how devastating can one moment of failure truly be?